Hello and welcome back to Continental Club, where we discuss the hottest topics in European football. Joining me today, we've got Patrick Van Straten and Michael McCubbin as ever. And we're discussing the old lady because Joe D. Shepherd has asked, is Sarri the most overrated manager in Europe? And Firmino's Fantasy asks, who should replace Sarri if he left or was sacked? But before we get into discussing Sarri, just a quick reminder to subscribe to EuroFootball Daily and hit that notification bell to never miss a Continental Club. But this has come up because 61-year-old Sarri and Juventus have endured sort of a week to forget, obviously losing 1-0 away at Lyon in a shock result on Wednesday, putting their chances of a first Champions League title since 1996 in jeopardy. And it's been a slightly underwhelming season so far, although judging from what we said off camera, there could be some disagreement on that. So I think it might be quite a spicy episode. But Pat, set the scene. What happened on Wednesday and what do you think this means for their season?
Well, I don't think it's so much what happened. You know, losing 1-0 away in the round of 16 of the Champions League is not that crazy. But their expectations are kind of the issue here, right? So obviously they went through the group stage unbeaten, despite having Leverkusen in the group, despite having Atletico Madrid. And Lyon are not having a good season. They're 7th in Liga, and they're probably a little bit better than that, but they're also missing, Memphis Depay, they're missing Youssef Kone, I think they were also missing Cornet?
And Jeffrey Adelaide.
Oh, Jeffrey Adelaide. No, not Cornet. Yeah, and it just, I don't know, they were a little bit toothless. They didn't have a shot on target in the game, and apparently that's the first time they failed to do so in the Champions League since 2014. So it didn't really feel ever like they were it didn't feel like they got unlucky. It didn't feel like they were building pressure and just about failed to make it tell. It was just a pretty poor, toothless performance. And if they get through, then it will be their 4th successive quarter-final. But I don't think anybody really thinks Juve are in danger of winning it at this point. And to me, I just think, yes, Inter Milan have a good squad. To go back to Serie A, yes, Inter Milan have a good squad, and yes, they have an excellent coach in Conte, but I do think that the majority of football is putting talent on the field. Like, managers are important, but really, if you can just run out like a great 11 again and again and again, then you tend to win games. And one of the things I've struggled with this season, I don't know about you guys, is that I don't really know why Sarri continues to pick a team which I do not think is Juventus' best 11. I don't know why he's still so reliant on midfielders like Matuidi instead of playing, the exciting midfielders they brought in the summer. It just seems to me like they haven't really taken much of a step forward. If they'd gone to Lyon and lost like 3-2 or whatever, then you'd kind of say, oh, we see how this is becoming Sarri's Juventus. But fundamentally at the moment, it seems like the defence has got worse. I think they're on a run of 7 away games without a clean sheet at the moment. Without a kind of corresponding uptick in attack. So I don't really know what Juventus are at the moment. And I think if they expect to go really deep in the Champions League, I still think they'll probably get past Lyon. But yeah. I don't know. I don't have that much faith in them.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most damning things was after the game, Sarri said they lacked determination and aggression and that he can't get across to them the need to pass the ball quickly, which is the sort of the basics, the fundamentals of Sarri's system. And it was, as you say, pretty toothless. Like, I haven't seen them be so limp in attack for quite a while. They couldn't seem to get their forwards into the game without the focal point of Higuain. Like, they still seem pretty reliant on Higuain to sort of tie the attack together at times. And it was pretty worrying, although some circumstances were against them. Toussaint's goal happened when De Ligt was off the field dealing with a really nasty cut. So I wouldn't be surprised if they came back and won in Turin, but it was pretty worrying, I would say. McCubbs, when they appointed Sarri, they did make some big moves in the transfer market, and I think people were quite, had quite high expectations.
For sure, and I mean, to be fair to Sarri, that he's overseen quite a big transitional kind of moment in kind of Juventus's. In the last kind of 10 years of Juventus, to be fair. Like, I mean, he replaced Allegri, who'd obviously won 5 consecutive titles, 4 Coppa Italias, so like 4 doubles he'd done, 2 Champions League finals. So that's, first of all, big shoes to step into. Second of all, obviously brought in a lot of talent, but also sold a lot. Sold Cancelo, who was so vital to that team last year. Spinazzola, Keane, Storaro, Orsolini. That came to around 180 million euros, or no, just over 200 million euros. And obviously spent a lot on De Ligt, Danilo, Romero, Pellegrini, Demiral. and obviously Rabiot and Ramsey came in on frees. And yeah, like you were saying, Pat, we haven't seen enough of a lot of those players, in particular Rabiot, Demiral. We haven't really seen a lot of. I guess that's maybe understandable in terms of kind of De Ligt's signature and whatnot, and the continuation of Bonucci as captain. But I don't know. It's difficult. I think what Sarri said after the game is really damning on his kind of managerial reign. I think we saw it around this time last year at Chelsea that he was starting to moan a little bit about kind of the players not taking up to his style, not taking up to kind of the level of performance that he wants from them. And like 8 months into a job, that's just like, you can't really keep pointing the fingers at your players at that point. Like, surely, that's your fault at that point, if that's really how you feel. And it just kind of says to me that maybe he is just losing the players and hasn't, once again, is just a difficult person to work with. I think that's the problem with Sarri. I think otherwise, I would say to you, they keep him on for another season at least, because you saw what he did at Napoli in 3 years. Turned them into pretty much the most exciting team in Europe, and has a good squad. Probably could maybe do with a little bit of work up top. Obviously, Higuain needs to be replaced. Ronaldo will need to be replaced in the next 2 years, probably. But yeah, it's just a shame, because he was obviously such an exciting manager 2 years ago, and in the last 2 years, obviously what we saw at Chelsea, even though I think he did a fairly good job at Chelsea, he still got them third, he got them the Europa League. I think the issue for me is that he just seems to be such a difficult character to work with, that unless you have the perfect kind of the perfect blend of players and kind of the board willing to kind of work, the perfect kind of people behind the scenes as well, and the perfect ownership, I guess, that it just isn't going to work for him, annoyingly, at a top club which need results quickly.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like they, as you say, as you said at the start, it's a big transition. They'll obviously need to Chiellini as well with his injury. Don't think that's helped in defence as well. De Ligt has looked shaky at times, giving away quite a few penalties, quite a few issues at times. I think he's obviously a fantastic signing overall, but bedding into a new club, expectations a lot higher. And they started really well. I think they went unbeaten through their first 14 or 15 games. And since then, they've lost to Lazio, Napoli, and Hellas Verona, which is the most worrying of those. Because, all great teams lose a couple of games per season, but Hellas Verona is a bit of a worry. But luckily for them, Inter have also hit the buffers in recent weeks as well. I think they've only won 4 of their last 10, quite a few draws in there, and also had a game postponed. So Juve are already 6 points ahead of Inter, but Inter have a game in hand, and Lazio, I think, are only a point behind. So it is pretty tight. But guys, we'll get into more analysis of Juventus in just a second. But we're going to hear from Zach Lowy now, one of my favourite analysts on Twitter, about his take on Juventus' season so far and whether Sarri needs to be replaced.
I think that in one way or another, Maurizio Sarri's time at Juventus was always destined to be a struggle for factors both beyond and within his control. Looking at their summer business, they really didn't do enough to overhaul the squad and bring in players who were adjusted or suited to Sarri's style of play. Instead, you've got Sarri trying to coach a team that's a lot more accustomed to Allegri's style of play and Allegri's tactics. It's not a Sarri team that can press high, that can spread the ball around smoothly. If Juventus fail to win the Scudetto, if they fail to get to the Champions League final at least, I really don't think that the Agnelli family, with the likes of Simone Inzaghi, Maurizio Pochettino, and so many others available, I really don't think that they give Sarri another chance.
Thank you very much to Zach there. Please check him out on Twitter. Always worth a follow. Fantastic analysis, in my opinion. Pat, who have been the key players, and should we be slightly worried by their lack of convincing victories, to be fair, in Serie A?
I'm not really sure about that. Like 13 of their 19 wins have been by 1 goal, but I think when you look at games, like the Inter game, you think, okay, well, this is pretty convincing, really. I mean, I generally speaking, Juventus have been a side that are happy to win a game by 1 goal. So it doesn't bother me too much, and I do think there is still this year was always going to be a bedding in year because it's such a stark stylistic shift. But they have been incredibly reliant on Ronaldo. Ronaldo's expected goals and assists have actually gone up this season from last year. So I think he's at 0.99 per 90 minutes. Still takes tons of shots. He's actually dribbling a lot more than he was at the tail end of his Real Madrid career. He's also still pretty creative. On the other hand, there are a lot of penalties in there. And there aren't a lot of goals shared around the rest of the squad. I mean, I think Dybala's been involved in 10, Higuain in 9. Bentancur's the only guy with like a decent number of assists. Actually, Bentancur's been great this season. Bentancur has really kind of come to the fore. And I think when you look at Bentancur and Rabiot, plus, you know, Ramsey and Pjanic and all those guys who can contribute, you do see the heart of like a really great Juve side to come. But I do think like if you give Sarri guys he knows, like Higuain, or old guys, he's just going to use them. And I feel like sometimes with him, you need to do the kind of like Billy Bean, Oakland Athletics thing, where you're like, you know what, you keep playing this guy we don't want you to play, we are just going to sell him. Like, I do sometimes think you just have to get rid of like Higuain and Matuidi, because otherwise they are going to come out every single week. And Bentancur this season, it's like over 4 tackles and interceptions per game. I think it's like 1.5 dribbles and like getting on for 2 key passes. Like, these are really good numbers from a kind of number 8 role he's been playing, but I think he can also excel as a 6. So
he's a great passer as well.
Yeah, I just think they've got so much talent that they should be miles ahead. And don't get me wrong, like Conte is amazing at like just getting the maximum amount of his players, but I think Juve just have to stay the course at this point. I think they have to stick with him and say, you know what, after a year, we hope that some of his style of play will become automatic. And that instead of us doing this kind of like laboured style, which is still conflicting with like our old defensive principles, people are actually going to start to do these things naturally and start to kind of combine in the way that you saw Sarri's Napoli do, the little triangles, the quick movement through the middle of the park. But I don't know, I just don't really trust Juve necessarily to do that. And I do worry about why they brought Sarri in. Like, they were killing the league year in, year out under Allegri. And it feels like they wanted to change manager because they wanted to win the Champions League, because they haven't done it since 1996. But Sarri is not the guy I would bring in to win 2-legged like ties against big clubs around Europe. I bring him into
good cup guy.
I think that after this season, when they win this season or not, I think they'll probably go on to crush the league relentlessly over the next few years, just because they've got so much talent. I think some other teams are coming to the end of a cycle or are rebuilding.
Martinez might leave it into.
Yeah, and like Roma are rebuilding. Atalanta probably are going to lose like Ilicic and Gomez over the next couple of seasons. But I'm not sure that I ever see them like going up against like a Liverpool or someone in the Champions League and just rolling them over. I can't see that happening.
His business is going to be really interesting this summer as well, because they focused a lot on their defence in the previous last summer, and obviously brought in Rabiot and Ramsey for midfield, although I wouldn't say either of those transfers have worked out for the players' point of view yet in terms of their game time so far. But he's got Higuain, the guy he knows so well from Napoli, who's always really backed, and you've got to play Ronaldo in that side, and he's find a way to fit in Dybala as well, which Allegri struggled with last year as well. So and Douglas Costa has had some injuries, Bernardeschi we've barely seen. So there's a lot of question marks over that forward area, as McCubbs pointed to earlier. McCubbs, are you of the opinion that they need to change manager? And if not, and if yes, who would they go for? I think you're probably not, are you?
In an ideal world, I wouldn't be. I think, like I said before, I think it would be a bit harsh to kind of throw Sarri in to this kind of Juve side as it is now, the kind of summer they had last year, and be like, yeah, we've got to win the league and go deep in the Champions League straight away, because Allegri wasn't capable of doing that last season with the squad he had. And okay, maybe they have kind of potentially upgraded, I guess, but in some ways, but it's still a new team. It still is tough to bed in a lot of players all at once. We know that Rabiot probably hasn't had the game time. We also know that Rabiot isn't necessarily the easiest player to work with as well. So yeah, in a footballing sense, I would definitely stick with him. It's just whether I don't know. Like I said, it just feels like maybe in terms of relations between the manager and the players, and I don't know about his relationship with the board, but it just feels like it could be the sort of thing where they need to act before it actually gets toxic. Obviously, Pochettino is available. And no doubt Juve would face competition, namely from Man United, come the end of the season, unless Solskjaer suddenly pulls something crazy out the bag in the last few months. I think Simone Inzaghi as well, would maybe be a good option to look at. Obviously, he's been at Lazio for pretty much his whole footballing career, hasn't he? So I can see it would be, I don't know, it would make, I could see why he wouldn't want to leave because for a direct rival like that, because he is so loyal to Lazio. He's obviously been manager there for 4 years, has done a pretty excellent job. Finally got them in contention of an actual title this season as well, and that would be an amazing achievement to win that first title in 20 years in Rome. But I don't know, I feel like he would be maybe a logical option in terms of a manager who has, in those 4 years, now put himself kind of in contention for an elite club essentially. But the others, I don't know, that you've obviously got like Nagelsmann and Rose in Germany, but for whatever reason, I just can't see them leaving Germany. And also, first of all, I can't see Juve beating, say, a Bayern to Nagelsmann, or Nagelsmann going to Juve before going to another big club. And with someone like Rose or someone like Ten Hag even, I just can't see Juve taking another chance on a manager who hasn't, had that top level experience essentially, or had that top 5 league, well, not top 5 league experience, but not managed a big club before. Because I mean, in some ways, Sarri was a little bit of an experimental appointment. He was very much brought in for kind of stylistic reasons rather than anything else. So, so I don't know. It's a difficult one. I think Pochettino's the only one where you go, yeah, he'll definitely sort them out in 2 years, and will easily win titles as well. So yeah, it's difficult, and in that sense, yeah, it's hard to, it's a bit of a tricky one for you though.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like with the calibre of manager in Pochettino who is available this summer, I feel like they'll regret not making a managerial change and Pochettino going on to Bayern or possibly Man United, although I think he's more likely to go to Bayern at this stage. And I feel like Pochettino would do a better job than Sarri over the next 2-3 years. But probably the person to go for is to keep Sarri in for another year and then go for Pep when he's probably going to leave Man City in 2021. Before I think he plans to take the Brazil job after that as well. So Juventus then Brazil for Pep is what I'd assume. Pat, have you got anyone else to throw in the hat? Could Tuchel, if he leaves PSG, maybe be a good option?
I don't think I'd necessarily go for Tuchel. I do think he's better than Sarri, but I don't know. I'm not sure it makes sense. I think if Pochettino's around, then go for Pochettino if you must make a change, but I'm not sure Guardiola's going to go there.
Fair. There we have it, guys. That's our take on Juventus. Hope you enjoyed it. Do you think they should get rid of Sarri? Let us know in the comments down below. And let's move on to Big Match Preview. For the big match preview this weekend, we could have talked about Juve Inter, but we've already talked about Juve in great detail. But that's on Sunday night. Inter looking to cut the gap to 3 points. We also could have talked about RB Leipzig Bayer Leverkusen, which takes place on Sunday afternoon. What a game that will be. But there was only really one option, ladies and gentlemen, because it's El Clasico this Sunday at 8 p.m. Real Madrid versus Barcelona, currently separated by just 2 points. Pat, disappointing result in the week for Real Madrid. Do you think they can bounce back in this?
Yeah, I don't see why not. They're at home, and while they had a disappointing result, yes, I do not think Barcelona are very good at all. I mean, obviously it's possible Messi just does some magic, but Real Madrid have been the best team in La Liga this season. That'd be impressive. In La Liga this season, I do genuinely think they've been pretty decent. And in the first half of the City game, I thought they were pretty decent too. There's been this talk afterwards that it was Guardiola's amazing master plan that just took Real Madrid apart, and I actually kind of thought he got it mostly wrong until quite late on. I thought they were fairly toothless in the first half, Man City.
And a lot of chances for either side.
The most dangerous player on the pitch, I thought, was Vinicius Jr.
Yeah, in that first half.
Had a really good game. I think, was it 3 dribbles, 3 tackles and an assist in the end? Really good awareness for the assist too. And just having that extreme pace on the wings, I think, will really make a difference. Because when you look at Barcelona right now, there's not a huge amount of pace in it.
Or width.
Well, that's true. Yeah, they're kind of going to have to rely on wing backs to some extent. And they were really bad as well against Napoli. I mean, they just couldn't handle being pressed. And again, the Real Madrid press against Man City in the first half I thought was pretty good. At half-time, I almost tweeted, the good thing for Man City is they cannot possibly be this bad in the second half. But I think I was perhaps not giving enough credit to Real Madrid, who were really chasing down everything and pressing them pretty hard in a way that you don't necessarily expect from a side that's kind of starting Modric and Isco in midfield. However, Ramos had a bad game, got sent off. And when City kind of woke up and decided to go for it, it just looked like Real didn't really have a way of controlling them. So those things do worry me a little bit.
3 or 4 in the end.
And I think they've now dropped 4 points in their last 2 league games after having been on a real tear. I think they were on 5 straight wins, in which time they'd scored 2. They'd conceded 2 and scored 11, which is like really obscene. I think that actually, I know I've said this before, but genuinely, like, I never rated Zidane as a manager when he was winning Champions League after Champions League. This season, I'm really, really impressed. Like, just by dropping like a very limited player in Valverde into midfield, he has found a way to compensate for a lot of the problems of an aging squad.
He brings a lot of dynamism, yeah.
He's done such a good job this season, Zidane. The question is whether he can get enough out of guys like Benzema. Benzema has been, running the channels, doing what he always does, like linking up play really well, but right now he's not in the greatest form. I think he's got 2 goals and an assist in 12 games in all competitions. So, and that's kind of what you expect from a guy of his age. You expect this patchy form. However, to me, it really comes down to what Barcelona turn up. If Barcelona turn up and play well and Messi's having a great night, then who knows? But the Barcelona of this season, I don't know.
Well, yeah, you'd expect Real Madrid to be able to contain them going forward, because in that Napoli game, McCubbs, as I said, it was so narrow. I felt it was so easy for Napoli just to defend quite deep, which you might, Real Madrid probably won't do that at home, but just with Griezmann, Messi up front, no Fati, no Dembele, there was just no width.
Yeah, no. Firpo was playing, and you expect you'd expect him to have had a greater role in it. But I just think when you're playing, when you're playing a Napoli team who are basically there to frustrate you, that kind of Setien's kind of style of play maybe just becomes quite stale quite quickly, and you definitely saw that in the first 20 minutes. I actually switched over after 20 minutes because I thought it was such a dull game and I just didn't see it going anywhere. And then I kind of came back in when it was getting a little bit more interesting, and then it kind of got quite dull again. For those first 20 minutes, it just looked almost like kind of Van Gaal's United. There was just no movement really. Very little kind of speed and attack in it. I guess Napoli's kind of game plan worked in that sense. But yeah, they only got 2 shots on target in the whole game. But it's really difficult to judge where Barcelona are right now, because obviously Setien's been in for about a month. His league record has been very good. He's won all but one of them. Scored 13, conceded 6. So they're not the best attacking side in the league, not the best defensive side in the league, but this isn't really anything new. Like, they were pretty bad before Setien came in. To expect him to turn it around this quickly is, would probably be asking too much of a manager who's not managed at a club like this before and isn't facing teams like Napoli who are going to set up so defensively against a side like that. So I don't know. I think it will be an interesting game. I don't think Real Madrid are the better team in La Liga on balance, but Barcelona are still 2 points ahead of them. And when it comes down to the actual game, it's just going to depend on essentially who is more lethal going forward on the night. If I expect Ansu Fati to come back. Obviously, I don't quite understand why he wasn't playing midweek, but I think with him, Messi and Griezmann up top as a 3, so much better than just having Messi and Griezmann. I think their combination just doesn't seem to work as a 2 going forward. And I think the games in which Barca have struggled under Setien, it has kind of been that combination up top. So I think Ansu Fati's got to come back in, and I think also as a midfield 3, they just seem to work better as well. I know that he is quite keen on kind of implementing that 3-5-2, but so far it just doesn't seem to be working. I think that's something that's going to have to happen after a full summer. working with pre-season and maybe getting another couple of signings in who suit that system. So yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one, but I'm probably gonna back Real on this one. I think they're probably the safer option to go with, but I think it's going to be a really tight game. I can't see there being that many goals in it. I think I'd probably go like 2-1 Real.
Fair, yeah. I think I'm going along similar lines. I think it's an absolutely must-win game for Real Madrid in that they're 2 points back, and it's done on head-to-head if points are tied as well, which I can't sort of forgotten about. So points difference doesn't come into it. Head-to-head is vital, and obviously they drew the first game 0-0. And with PK out, Jordi Alba out, Sergio Roberto out, it'll be a pretty makeshift back four for Barcelona. So Real Madrid really need to strike, although they do obviously have their injury issues of their own going forward. Obviously Asensio's out, Hazard's out, Mariano's out, although that's less of an issue. And Barcelona, we know that they're without Suarez and Dembele. I feel like this is a season that potentially could peter out for Barcelona with their injury issues, although Martin Braithwaite did have a pretty good debut, albeit against pretty weak opposition against Eibar. But Real Madrid have had a pretty torrid time in this fixture as well. They've only won 3 of their last 15 league fixtures, and they've only won 7 of their last 23 meetings in all competitions, dating back to August 2012. So it feels like an absolutely vital game for Real Madrid, and I can only see it going that way. I'm going to go with 1-0 Real Madrid. Pat, what do you reckon for score?
2-1 Real Madrid.
2-1 Real Madrid. So we're all going for Real Madrid, all in agreement. El Clasico is going to Madrid. Let's see whether we're right come Sunday. Let's move on to Quickfire Questions. Our Quickfire question this week comes in from BVB90_Julian, who asked, how will the Bundesliga race go now that Lewandowski is out for a month? Pretty massive news. Pat, do you think this is the time for RB Leipzig to strike?
Yeah, but that's going to come down to Bayern. I mean, Leipzig basically just know what they need. They just have to keep winning relentlessly. But I don't know, man. Like, it is the one injury that Bayern wouldn't have wanted to get. But on the other hand, the attack has been so lethal that I still just think they'll probably be fine. Like, Muller is
in the Champions League at least.
Yeah, Muller's in great form right now. Alphonso Davies gives you so much from left back. Like there's just attack coming from all over the place. I'd say the question is more whether this means it destabilises other areas of the team. Like if they have to move Davies forward and maybe Alaba back out to left back. Like I don't know. You wonder if like sometimes you have these cascading effects, you know, where one player goes out, so you have to move this guy, so you have to move that guy, so you have to move that guy. If it just means like moving Muller forward, playing him as a false 9 and dropping Coutinho in the hole, I don't think it's going to be a disaster.
Yeah, I mean, they don't actually really have a natural number 9 replacement. I think Jan Vertonghen is their only other player who's a natural number 9 in that squad, and obviously they can play Muller and Coutinho. It could work quite well. McCubbs, do you see this having a vital role in the title race? If it's only a month.
I think it depends. I mean, I don't have Bayern Munich's like next 4 or 5 games to hand. It kind of depends on the strength of the opposition, but yeah, definitely could. Like, I mean, he's been so key to them, hasn't he, over the years, and especially over the last 12 months. You saw against Chelsea. You know, I mean, there were a number of great performances against Chelsea, but Lewandowski's performance in particular, I thought was outstanding. And okay, yeah, they do. Their attack does perform very well all over, but like he is a vital cog in that, and he is the one player in that attack as well who can just score freely. Essentially, you know, like you don't necessarily like Muller has had a great season, but you wouldn't trust him in the same way that you trust Lewandowski up top, obviously because he's not a striker, but just beyond that, I don't know, that he is that kind of talismanic figure, and just how in terms of how tight the title race is now, it does come down to these kind of moments, I guess, if Bayern drop say 4 or 5 points over the next month, you will look back on it and be like, well, if Lewandowski was in the team, they probably wouldn't have done. So, I think it kind of depends on the strength of the opposition they have over the next few weeks. If they're playing quite easy teams, then I don't think it will be an issue. But if they do have some decent tests, then it could make the difference. Yeah,
the good thing for them is that Serge Gnabry's obviously in such fantastic form, and Nicolas Sula and Luka Hernandez are coming back from injury, so that should shore up the back. Although they've been very solid defensively as well. So it'll be a fascinating next month also in the Bundesliga, but make sure you check out El Clasico at 8 p.m. And that's all we've got time for on this week's Continental Club. Thank you very much for staying with us. Thank you for your contributions, all the people that asked questions. Thank you to Zach Lowy for giving his opinion. McCubbs, what should they go do now?
I guess stay here on EFD, go check out the last stat wars between Jackson and Zach, and I believe Zach versus I'm Alex in Star Wars Champions is happening tomorrow.
Massive.
So yeah, stick on here for that.
Nice. Pat, anything from you?
Check out the podcast Extra Time. It's available on Spotify, Apple, like wherever you get your podcasts. New episodes drop every Thursday.
Nice. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.